I'm Jan Freed, the chair, and I will read the Plan and Zoning Commission rules and procedures. The Plan and Zoning Commission is generally an advisory body to the City Council. The City Council will hold a public hearing and make the final decision on all matters before the commission, other than site plans and subdivision plots, unless denials or conditional approvals thereof are appealed. Please contact the city clerk or community development department staff at 515-689-9489 for details on council hearings. The applicant will be given 10 minutes to present the request. If applicants wish to share materials not already submitted with the application, please email them to planning@dmgov.org so a staff host may be able to share them on the screen when you present. Proponents and then opponents from the public are then allowed to speak in that order, with each speaker allowed a maximum of 5 minutes. Staff has attempted to compile a list of people who would like to speak on each item. Staff will first call on these people and then we'll open it up to anyone else who wishes to speak. To request to speak during the hearing, please use the raise hand function on Zoom webinar via the internet or dial *9 on your phone. Once permission to speak is given, to unmute and mute, dial *6 on your phone. You will be required to give your name and address for the record prior to speaking. Also, we ask that you keep your microphones and phones on mute unless you've been given the chance to address the commission by the chair. And again, to unmute and mute your phone, it's *6. The applicant is then allowed 5 minutes for rebuttal if any opponent spoke. All comments are to be germane to the item under consideration, and speakers are to maintain a courteous manner. The hearing will then be closed and the commission will discuss and vote on the issue. Items listed on the consent portion of the agenda will not be individually discussed and will be considered for approval in accordance with the recommendation in the staff report unless an individual present or member of the commission requests that the item be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately under the public hearing agenda. The City of Des Moines is pleased to provide accommodations to individuals or groups with disabilities and encourages participation in city government. Please know that typical accommodations may be limited by emergency requirements as issued by the state of Iowa and the City of Des Moines. So I believe we have a quorum, and Tyler, roll call.
Francis Bogus.
You see the town. Here's one last week where they got again a host of the
Francis Bogus. Dory Browse. Jan Freed.
Here.
Emily Webb. Kayla Berkson.
Here.
Greg Wattier.
Here.
Carolyn Jennison. Greg Jones.
Here.
Johnny Alcivar.
Here.
Abby Chungeth.
Here.
Thank you. Lisa Howard. Will Page.
Here.
Rocky Sposado.
Here.
Francis Bogus, are you with us? I see you on here. And also Dory, are you with us?
I'm present.
Thank you. So we have 10 present.
Thanks, Tyler. The minutes from September 17th, do we have any additions, revisions, or a motion?
Madam Chair, this is Will Page. I have an addition to item number, the last item on the agenda in the minutes.
Okay.
This was the the very last number. I'm sorry, here I'm going to get the number. It's a long one. Hang on. It was item number 8. It was the last item on September 17th. And the motion, I made the motion, which is correct, is written here. But in addition to that, the motion included that the P&Z Commission should establish an ad hoc committee to study issues related to the sidewalk ordinance and recommend an orderly approach to that. That was included in my motion and was approved by the commission. I'd appreciate that correction, please, or addition.
Okay, Will, thank you. Any other changes or revisions? So do we have a motion with that, given that revision?
This is Dory. I'll approve the minutes as amended.
Okay, thanks, Dory. Roll call.
Rocky Spizzato.
Abstain.
Will Page.
Yes.
Johnny Alcivar.
Yes.
Emily Webb.
Yes.
Jan Freed.
Yes.
Kayla Berkson.
Yes.
Carolyn Jennison.
Yes.
Francis Bogus. Francis.
I'm hearing a slight, this is Eric Lundy, senior planner. I'm hearing a slight sound from him and I see it on his microphone. So I'm wondering if he's actually saying that he's here, but I can't tell what he's saying.
Okay. We'll move on. Greg Wattier.
Abstain.
Abby Chungeth.
Yes.
Greg Jones.
Yes.
And Dory.
Yes.
So motion carries. We got 12 present now, so that'd be 10-02.
Okay. Thanks, Tyler.
Yep.
Now we'll turn our attention to the consent items. Number 1, request from Casey's Marketing Company, represented by Eric Nickel, for the following regarding the property at 3121 Forest Avenue. The subject property is owned by Neighborhood Development Corporation. Eric?
Yes, so this is on the consent. You probably want to ask if anybody's here to
Sorry.
speak against it.
Yes, sorry about that.
That's right.
Yeah, is there anyone here who would like to hear this item? Anyone on the commission, anyone online who would like to hear this item? Raise your hand. And again, that is *9 on your phone. Yeah.
Yeah, *9 to raise your hand.
Yeah. Or you can raise your hand if you're on Zoom.
Correct.
Is there anyone who'd like to hear that item? Is there anyone on the commission who would like to hear this item? I'm not seeing any. Okay, so we'll leave it on consent. I don't believe there are any other items for consent. Is that correct, staff?
There's none that we would recommend.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Do I have a motion to approve the consent item?
This is Dory. I'll approve the consent.
Okay, thank you, Dory. Roll call?
Abby Chungeth.
Yes.
Rocky Spizzato.
Yes.
Will Page.
Yes.
Johnny Alcivar.
Yes.
Emily Webb.
Yes.
Dory Browse.
Yes.
Jan Freed.
Yes.
Kayla Berkson.
Yes.
Carolyn Jennison.
Yes.
Francis Bogus,
I'm wondering if Francis could raise his
My
hand
abs-
if he's, if he's online, but
all right. Greg Wattier,
Yes.
Greg Jones.
Yes.
So I'll probably have to abstain Francis. So the motion would carry 11-0-1.
thanks, Kyle.
Very quickly, let's just try this. Francis, if you are in agreement with the motion that was made, could you raise your hand on the Zoom call, please? Okay, not present.
Okay. Now we'll turn our attention to the public hearing items. Item number 2. Request from 3100 Grand Avenue condominium, owner represented by Nancy Strickler, for review and approval of a public hearing site plan, alternate design documentation for a type 2 design alternative in accordance with chapter 135, sections 135-9.2.4b and 135-9.3.1b for property located at 3100 Grand Avenue in order to allow installation of a 25-foot tall flagpole in the front yard area along Grand Avenue that would exceed the maximum allowed height of 15 feet for a flagpole within an NX3 neighborhood mixed district building per chapter 135, section 135-2.22.3.e.2. Eric?
Madam Chair, this is Eric Lundy, Senior City Planner. This item is basically a type 2 design alternative. It's not an item that would normally get a building permit or anything, but is still a standard that has to be met. The applicant, which is the condominium collective, is looking to reset their flagpole with a larger flagpole to go in a slightly different location, but they're wanting a 25-foot tall flagpole, which is taller than their current 15-foot flagpole, which would actually meet the standard. So the property is at the corner of 31st Street and Grand Avenue on the southwest corner. It's a 7-story building in that location. As a point of reference, this would be the Tower Clinic on the Des Moines University campus. And then the condos at 3,000 Grand or not condos, but apartments at 3,000 Grand on the block to the east. This is the view from the northwest across Grand Avenue. You might be able to see a flagpole in this location right here. Zooming in a little closer, it's probably easier to see that. This is the location where they're proposing it, which is closer to their drive access onto Grand Avenue. They free-handed a flag here. I believe the 25 feet would be a little taller than what they're showing representatively. They've shown the general location of where the flagpole would be installed. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit on this to help you look. They've provided this with their application. This is a view from the sidewalk looking southeast at the building. And then again, that same zoomed in. This was a narrative they provided with their application, and I'll let them present during their opportunity to speak. Application. The staff report. Staff is generally supportive of this. The height of the building is 7 stories, so this isn't a question. The standard was set at 15 feet for these zoning districts, basically to stay within scale of residential, mixed residential zonings. And in this case, the existing building is a 7-story building. The flagpole would be on the north side between the building, the height of the building, and Grand Avenue, so it would not be out of scale. So staff believes this would meet the criteria for giving the design alternative and maintain the character without impacting surrounding properties or the public on Grand Avenue. And so we are recommending approval of the requested type 2 design alternative, allowing a flagpole installation at 25 feet in height.
Are there questions for Eric?
Here's some cards that were received. I'm going to zoom back out a little bit here. And if you want to look at any more specifically, I can go back to them. The ones that are marked with the green are in support. This is the consent map that would show the green circles would represent the cards that came back in green, and then there's the 2 in opposition are shown. One's on within the subject ownership, and the other is on a condominium to the northeast.
Questions for Eric from the commission? If the applicant's online, please state your name and address.
Madam Chair, Mary Wisenand has raised her hand.
Okay, Mary.
There we are. Mary Wisenand, W-H-I-S-E-N-A-N-D, and I live at 3100 Grand, Unit 5E.
Yeah, go ahead, Mary.
So the reason that we have tried to, or that we're making this request is our current flagpole, not only is it 15 feet, it sits far from the view of the street, and it's actually beyond its lifespan. We can no longer raise and lower the flag because of a broken rope, and there's not good lighting with it. So we undertook a project to solicit private funds from the various residents in the building, and are not using any of the association dues to do this, and had already begun the process when we were informed that the zoning had changed January 1. So we went back and presented this site plan on the premise that the new flagpole would be more in line with the scale of the building overall. It would be more visible from Grand Avenue, and it would enhance the overall corridor.
Thanks, Mary. Questions for Mary from the commission? Okay, I'm not seeing. Is there anyone else here who would like to speak in favor of the proposal? Yes, I see Denny Davis.
Yes, I'm just, all I can do is echo what Mary said.
Okay, please state your address. Mr. Davis?
Okay, I'm at 3,100 grand.
Okay.
And just feel that the 25-foot flagpole is a more appropriate height for a 7-story building. That's basically echoing.
Okay, perfect. I think we got cut off a little bit, but thank you. Anyone else who would like to speak in favor of the applicant? Please raise your hand. Use *9 to raise your hand, or the hand function on Zoom. I'm not seeing any. Is there anyone here who wants to speak in opposition of this proposal? Again, *9 or raise your hand if you want to speak in opposition. I'm not seeing any. Okay. Time to close the public hearing. Is there a motion or discussion? Any discussion?
Jan, this is Greg Jones.
Yeah, Greg.
I'll make a comment, and then I'll move staff. I think this is one that I think staff needs to relook at again, because to me, it's silly that we're questioning whether or not a 25-foot flagpole is appropriate in front of a 7-story building. So if there's any way for the ordinance to get tweaked after its year review or whatever we're doing, it certainly seems appropriate to me. So with that, I'll move staff.
Yeah, I guess I would say, I agree in terms of, maybe we need to, I know they said mixed use, so maybe we need to designate whether it's, I don't know, a home. Well, I mean, 3,100 grand is a home. I mean, a 7-story. Anyway, very good. So, and you move staff, okay, Tyler?
Rocky Sposato.
Yes.
Will Page.
Yes.
Johnny Alcivar.
Yes.
Emily Webb.
Yes.
Dory Browse.
Yes.
Jan Freed.
Yes.
Kayla Berkson.
Yes.
Carolyn Jennison.
Yes.
And if I guess we could try Francis one more time. Francis, are you with us? Francis Bogus. Greg Wattier.
Yes.
Greg Jones.
Yes.
And Abby Chungus.
Yes.
Motion carries 11-01
Thanks,
with
Tyler.
Francis.
Okay, I just lost the agenda. Okay. We're ready for item number 3. Review and approval of a public hearing site plan, alternate design documentation for a denied type 1 design alternative in accordance with chapter 135, sections 135-9.2.4.b and 135-9.3.1.b in order to allow installation of a 2-foot tension wire extension to the height of an existing 6-foot tall chain link fence for a total height of 8 feet in the rear yard area that would exceed the maximum allowed height of 6 feet for a front fence within the rear yard of an NX2 neighborhood mixed district building per chapter 135, section 135-7.11. Catherine.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. Catherine Dostart, planner for the city of Des Moines. This property is located west of the Drake University campus on 34th Street between University and Forest Avenue. Couple of site photos to give you some context. Just a little bit for the front of the property. though we'll mainly be concerned about the rear of the property. Several photos of the parking lot. For reference, we can come back to any of this if anyone needs to see anything specifically. We did receive with the application a site sketch. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. The applicant is proposing to install in addition to the top of their pre-existing 6-foot-tall chain link fence in the rear of their property. They are interested in doing this as an additional security measure. And their proposal is showing this type of tension wire security measure that would extend from the top of the pre-existing fence outward over the property line onto the adjacent properties as a deterrent to people climbing the fence. I'll let the applicant explain the rationale behind adding the security measures. They did come through with this request, and it was for type 1 design alternative, and staff evaluated it and found that we could not support the request, so it was denied. We also informed them of other options that they could utilize to obtain their objectives, including that of either extending the height of the existing fence to 7 feet, or construction of an 8-foot-tall wood privacy fence. That would be a solid wood fence for up to 6 feet tall, and then 2 feet of wood lattice at the top. Staff did feel that those were appropriate and would both achieve the security measures that the applicant is looking for. They did not feel that that was something that they wanted to pursue, and so they have asked for your approval to do as they proposed initially. However, as we mentioned, staff did not feel comfortable doing the type 1 design alternative for this, and so we are denying the request as they've asked for, but we would recommend approval of an amended request to allow the expansion of the vertical height of the pre-existing fence to 7 feet tall, or construction of a new vertical fence. And we are also still supportive of an 8-foot-tall wood privacy fence that is 6 feet tall with 2 feet of wood lattice at the top. Staff will additionally note that the proposal that the applicant is looking for tonight, again, does extend over the property line, which is something that cannot be permitted. We did not receive any communication back from the notification. And then we have some communication, a narrative from the applicant. I can zoom in and scroll through that. And in more detail, if we need to, I'll give you a few minutes to look through it. And I will also note that the applicant has provided us with some security footage that I will be facilitating for them during their presentation. And then we can come back to that if anyone needs to read through that more. Just let me know. And then if I can answer any questions for the commission, I'd be happy to.
Are there any questions for Catherine at this point from the commission? Okay, I'm not seeing any, hearing any. If the applicant's online, please give your name and address, please.
they'll have to unmute themselves.
Okay.
There we go.
This is Kim Upton.
Yes, Kim, go ahead.
My address is 1240 34th Street. That's the site where we'd like to add more height to the fence. There has been some miscommunication. Our contractor did not get back to us and explain any information that you shared with him when this was originally denied. So when I received the agenda on Monday, that's the first time that I heard that that it was explained clearly to me that the arm extending over the neighbors would not be permitted, and also that you'd made recommendations for us. That never came back to me, and so I would just like to let you know that we're happy to have any recommendations that you have, and we just look forward to any way that we can add some height to the fence to add security to the property and the women who live here.
Okay, thank you. Questions for Kim from the commission?
Hello, this is Greg Poitier. Kim, would you be okay with what staff did recommend as an improved alternative?
The recommendation for the wooden fence?
If I understand it right, and maybe staff can explain it again, would be that yes, you could do 7 foot tall by extending the existing fence. I think they mean in the material it already is, but maybe staff can further explain that.
Yes, this is Catherine again. So you could extend the height of the existing fence to 7 feet tall. That's part of our, excuse me. Okay, that didn't work the way I thought it would. To 7 feet tall, or you could construct a new 7 foot tall vertical fence. The reason we specified vertical is, again, just the fence is sitting on the property line as best we can tell. And so you would not be able to do something that extended over the adjoining or adjacent properties. And, but we would also be supportive of a taller fence. However, it would require new construction. It would need to be a wood privacy fence. So it could be a solid wood wall that's 6 feet tall. And then on top of that 6 feet, you could add a wooden lattice with a bit of support bracing. Usually the fence post would be 8 feet tall, and then you would add the wood lattice over the top of the 6 foot solid portion. Is that a little more clarifying?
Is that directed to me, to Kim Upton?
Yes, if that would help, if that makes more sense, or I can try to explain it a little bit better.
Well, actually, we would really like it to be 8 foot, because we don't think 7 feet will keep the athletic intruders off the property. And also, I did have a security audit by our neighborhood police officer liaison, Mark McKinney, and he suggested that 7 feet would probably not keep intruders out. So if we could go for the straight vertical 8 foot with the 2 feet of extension wire on top of our existing 6 foot fence, that would be ideal. If y'all don't like that idea, then we would like to go for the wooden fence with the lattice on top, if that's what you'll permit.
Madam Chair, this is Eric Lundy, Senior City Planner. I do want to point out that the agenda was revised to allow the consideration of the 8 foot tall fence from what was originally sent to the commission. So,
Madam Chair, this is Michael Ludwig.
Yes.
Could I address the commission?
Yes.
Yeah, Ms. Upton, this is Michael Ludwig, Planning Administrator for the City of Des Moines. I reviewed the original request that came in, and it was for vinyl slats in the existing chain link fence and then the tension wire on top of it. We, as staff, felt that the vinyl slats and that weren't in character with the neighborhood there. And if visibility was an issue into the parking lot, we felt that the 6-foot wood fence would be the better solution for screening that. But also recognizing your desire for, being able to keep people from climbing the fence, we felt the wood fence was a better alternative to the existing fence or even a taller chain link fence. It's fairly easy to scale a chain link fence. And so we felt like the wood fence and then allowing even additional height as a lattice on top would more adequately achieve the objectives. I'm sorry that you did not receive our comments from your contractor. I do believe that we had multiple conversations with them regarding this. So it's very unfortunate that you were not made aware of those comments.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, from a staff perspective, and I certainly don't speak for the police department, but it would just be our opinion that for screening visibility and for if the objective is truly to prevent people from climbing the fence, my recommendation would be a wood fence along that property line, and we would allow it up to 8 feet with the lattice up above, for a total height. So that was where staff was coming from on it. And again, if you are concerned about people still being able to climb it, I don't think 6, 7, 8 feet chain link is going to prevent somebody from climbing it.
Okay, I appreciate that, and I know that we really value your recommendation. And if the 8-foot tall wooden fence with the 2 feet of lattice on top of the 6-foot solid wood, if that's what you recommend, then we will very happily accept that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Other questions for the applicant? Is there anyone else who'd like to speak in favor of the proposal? Is there anyone else who'd like to speak in opposition or express concerns? Please raise your hand. Okay, I see Mike Hutchison. State your address, please.
Yes, I'm Mike Hutchison. I'm the owner of the property adjacent to the west, 3523 University.
Uh-huh.
And initially, my thought is I would be opposed to anything other than the what is allowed at 6 foot. But I do have the utmost respect for city staff, and if they're proposing something that's wood with the 8 foot, I could go along with that.
Okay, thank you.
Against what was proposed.
Okay, thank you. Other questions for Mr. Hutchison from the commission? I'm not seeing any. Okay, thank you. Anyone else who has concerns about this proposal? Raise your hand or *9 on your phone. Okay, I'm not seeing any. I'll close the public hearing. Discussion from the commission?
This is Dory. I'd move staff's recommendation.
Okay, thanks. As stated.
That would be for the 8 foot or 6 foot wood fence with up to 2 feet of lattice on top of it for 8 feet total height.
Correct.
Okay, thanks, Dory. Roll call. Tyler, roll call.
Will Page?
Yes.
Johnny Alcivar?
Yes.
Emily Webb?
Yes.
Dory Browse?
Yes.
Jan Freed?
Yes.
Kayla Berkson?
Yes.
Carolyn Jennison?
Yes.
Greg Wattier?
Yes.
Greg Jones?
Yes.
Abby Chungith?
Yes.
Rocky Spizzato?
Yes.
All right. And it looks like we do have some communication that 822-1434 might be Francis.
Oh, okay.
He's unmuted, so if he wants, or he's allowed to talk, so if he wants to unmute, that number wants to unmute.
Francis? Okay, I don't know, Tyler?
Okay, I'm just going to count him.
He would need to hit *6 to unmute his phone if he's calling in on that.
Hey, Tyler?
So we'd probably have him abstain again from this vote. So motion carries for item 3, 1101.
Okay, thank you. We're ready for item number 4. Review and approval of a public hearing site plan, alternate design documentation for the following type 2 design alternatives and denied type 1 alternatives in accordance with chapter 135, sections 135-9.2.4.b and 135-9.3.1.b to allow a 3-story 2,654 square foot expansion of the existing office building treated as a general building type in the P2 Public, Civic, and Institutional District. Bert.
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the commission, Bert Drost, planner for the city of Des Moines. The site plan before you tonight is requesting 8 different waivers, and I will try to go through them individually as I go through my presentation. The subject property is the Agribusiness Association of Iowa Foundation. It's located at the northeast corner of Des Moines Street and East 9th Street, right on the periphery of the Iowa State Capitol complex. The property is zoned P2, which is a public, civic, and institutional district, which does allow for an office use as what's being proposed. Here's a picture of the existing building viewed from the north looking south. They would be taking off this mansard roof and adding 3 different building additions onto it, 2 to the north and 1 to the south. This is looking straight east, and then 1 from the corner. On the site plan here, you could see the locations of the 3 building additions. The largest one would be on the south facade along Des Moines Street, and then there'd be 2 smaller additions on the north side of the building facing the parking lot. Here's their landscaping plan. So I'm going to start going through the appeals that they've requested. The first, in part A, is for an appeal of the requirement that they screen rooftop mechanical with a material that's equal to the height of the rooftop mechanical equipment. And the appeal is mostly for the west facade of the building. On the north, the new addition would predominantly screen the required rooftop mechanical equipment. But on the west side, it would still be generally visible. The applicant did provide some estimates from a contractor that shows it would cost approximately $50,000 to retrofit the existing building so that it could actually support the required screening. So that's really their justification for making this request. However, staff feels that it's still reasonable to require them to do something to screen from the west, so we have recommended denial of this portion of the request. The appeal in Part B is for waiver of the requirement that they underground utilities and replace the existing light poles with the black archetype fixtures. The estimate that they provided from Mid-American Energy shows that it would cost over $121,000 to underground those utilities along the west side of the property. I'll show you the layout. So if you can see my mouse, the subject property is right here. But according to Mid-American, in order to underground these utilities along that part of the property, they would also have to underground them further to the north. And then in addition to the estimate of $121,000 to underground the utilities, they've also provided an estimate that shows it would cost an additional $17,000 to replace the 3 light fixtures. So they're looking at roughly over $138,000 for those 2 requests. So staff does realize that that is a big expense, but we also realize this is probably the only opportunity in the next, foreseeable future where the city would be able to make or get the required undergrounding of the utilities. So the appeal in Part C is a waiver of the requirement that their windows be vertically oriented. And it's really just on this north facade where they're having 2 sets of windows that would be horizontally oriented rather than vertical. And staff does recommend approval of that waiver. Okay, that was waiver. That was the part in request in Part D. So I'll take a step back into Part C, which was the major materials. I'll say on this, they are proposing a mixture of the existing brick, cement panels, and glass window systems. They're just slightly deficient of the 60% requirements. So staff has recommended approval of this. However, we've recommended a condition that the bottom 2 feet of the building be sided with an approved major material. So that would really just impact the area where the cement board siding is shown at grade level. So the appeal in Part E is for a waiver of the requirement that there be articulation between the floors. You can see on these elevations that for the most part, they do have they have pretty good articulation, but there are a few locations where the floors are not articulated. And staff has recommended approval of that as well. The appeal in Part F is for a waiver of the required 7-foot wide setback for the parking lot, and that's right here along East 9th Street. They're only able to provide, or they're showing that they could only provide 4 feet. Staff has recommended approval. However, we believe that this could be tapered so that while it's 4 feet at the north end, it could be widened to 7 feet by the time you get to the south end. If you can see the shape of the parcel is kind of like a pie shape. We do recommend that they provide a range from 4 at the north to 7 at the south. And the appeal in Part G is for waiver of the required decorative metal fence in this landscape setback area. We have recommended denial of that. And then the appeal in Part H is they've requested waiver of the street tree requirement. And I'll let them explain that, but their basis is that since they're wanting to have retain the overhead utilities there, they don't want to provide the required trees beneath the utilities. And staff has recommended denial of that as well. So just in summary, staff has recommended denial of the appeals in parts A, B, G, and H, but we've recommended approval of the appeals in parts C, D, E, and F, subject to the 3 conditions listed here. Were there any questions for me?
Questions for Bert from the commission? I'm not seeing any. Okay, is the applicant here? Please, if the applicant's online, please state your name and address. Raise your hand. Okay, I see a hand. Okay, Kevin Drury, please state your address. And you, okay. Okay, we're not, oh, okay. Is it Kelsey who's going to be speaking?
If you would allow us, would we both be able to speak during this applicant portion? Kevin first, and then have me follow up afterwards?
Sure, we talked about that. Yes, that's fine.
Okay, thank you.
And state your address, please, Kevin. I'm not sure that's coming through, Kevin. It's not coming through for me. How about others? What staff think?
Yeah, there's an audio problem.
I can't understand it.
Right.
He might try calling in on his phone and muting his.
Kelsey, are you able to talk now until Kevin can call back?
Sure, I can definitely do that. And, you know, if we're not able to get his audio to work, I can kind of summarize some of the points he was hitting on or planning to hit on.
Okay.
All right, so.
State your address, please.
Yes, Kelsey Vetter, 14225 University Avenue, Waukee, Iowa. I am the architect with Farnsworth Group, formerly Design Alliance, and we've been working on this project with Agribusiness since the very beginning. So for the design alternative items, I'd like to highlight some of the key points that that Bert kind of referenced. So item A is our request to waive the requirement for a rooftop mechanical screen. And if you could go to page 33, which you were on before, that's the diagram looking from the west. And so as noted, this is a 3-story building. And currently when you're standing on the west side of the building, you are not able to see the units. And if you see that the bottom image there, we have some red lines and some blue lines showing that as you look up from the sidewalk and from the street, you still will be unable to see the new units that we were putting on the building. Again, on the south side of the building, if you look at that upper image, we are extending the walls of the south addition up higher than the roof line, so that will screen all of the units if you're looking from the south side. For the north side of the building, we are adding an addition, which will bring the face of the building out further and yet again hide these units even more so. Another thing to note with this is that we had planned for a roof screen initially in our plans here, and we ran this by the structural engineer, and he did his calculations, and he stated to us that the structural integrity of the roof will be compromised due to the additional load from snow. So that was really what triggered all of this, is that we are going to have to look at adding a large amount of structure to the existing roof in order to support this roof screen. And then again, too, the cost of the screen itself also plays into that. The next item I would like to address is item B, which is our request to waive the requirement for replacing the streetlights and undergrounding the utilities. I do want to note that we are undergrounding the line that feeds the building. So this request is just for the lines in the city's right-of-way. And looking at all of the properties that are surrounding us, none of the other utilities in this area, to our knowledge, have been undergrounded. So we're really just matching what is there and what is around us. If you would go to page 12. Here we have an email from Mid-American. We worked with them to receive a quote and drawings, which Bert mentioned beforehand. And in his email here, he states that the overhead to underground conversion is going to be extremely difficult in this area of town. And businesses fed from this line will cause extra facilities to be needed for a temporary amount of time until everything is changed to underground. If you would go to page 14 or 15, you'll see here all of the red marks are the areas where new installations are going to be required. And, you know, not only is this adjacent to our property, but is also to the north, further to the east, and even way down the street off to the west. So it's just it's a large undertaking, especially just for agribusiness to handle. And we just feel that it would be better to not have to do that at this time. The next item is item H, and this is our request to waive the required trees. And this one really does tie back into the overhead utilities, as Bert stated. Our biggest concern is that we don't want to have conflicts with overstory trees, which is what the city recommends for the street trees, if we are able to keep the overhead utilities. So we don't mind including trees there if we're able to keep the overhead utilities. We just want to make sure that we're able to do an understory tree that would miss those lines. The next item I have here is item C, and this is our request for approval of facade materials. Bert noted that they recommended approval of this item, but they did include a caveat requiring the bottom 2 feet of the building to be a major facade. Bert, if you could go to page 27, really close. So here are the renderings of our building, and our goal was to differentiate between the existing building and the new additions. And so the existing building is brick and block, and the new additions really utilize this stucco and this fiber cement panel board. And, we just feel that if we're able to bring this all the way to the ground as we have shown and not, create a differentiation there, that it would continue our look and really continue our design intent in separating these two parts of the building. We know that the city is concerned about durability, and we've provided the manufacturer's recommendations for these products. And for the fiber cement panel board, the manufacturer recommends we install it 6 inches above a soft grade. With that soft grade, I do want to note that the locations where we have this are not next to trafficked areas. They're always adjacent to planting beds. And so we feel that the opportunity for damage to occur would be fairly minimized. The last item I want to touch on here briefly is item G, and this is our request to waive the metal fence as part of the frontage buffer requirement. If you would go to page 7, this is our site plan layout. And as you can see, our existing site and our parking lot is oddly shaped. And we worked with the city, and I do want to thank the city for working with us through this, but we worked with them to provide as many stalls and meet as many requirements as possible. But this 4-foot buffer at the north side of the parking lot is difficult to overcome without causing more issues. So looking at that 4-foot buffer, it's required to have trees, a 3-foot fence, and the line of shrubs and grasses every 3 foot on center for the length of the lot. And we just feel aesthetically that the addition of the fence with the plantings would be a little busy for that space. And as growth occurs for all of our plantings, there might be some maintenance concerns about how we're able to keep the shrubs trimmed and not have them intertwine with the fence. And in speaking with the owner too, this is the Agribusiness Association of Iowa, and we thought that maybe a living fence could be a more appropriate way to approach this. And so, if we do more bushes or more plants, that could be a really nice aesthetic that would still screen the cars in this area. Items D, E, and
Kelsey, I believe you just muted yourself.
Am I back?
Yeah, now you are.
I'm just about done here, but items D, E, and F were recommended for approval by the staff, so we have no additional comments for those items. And then lastly, I do want to state that we really appreciate working with the city of Des Moines on this entire project. I know this existing building has had its challenges, as has the site, and the city has been extremely helpful in working through those items with us and making sure that we end up with a safe and aesthetically pleasing project. So I'm excited to move forward with this, and I hope that we can get to a point where we're meeting both the city's requirements and the owner's needs so we can have a great project. Do you know if Kevin was able to sign back in at all? Maybe.
I don't believe so. I think those 2 phone numbers were there before we started this item.
Okay. Well, if you guys don't mind, I do have some of the information that Kevin was going to bring up, and I could briefly touch on that. I know it won't be quite the same, but something is better than nothing, right?
Yeah.
And actually, too, if Joel is on the line, maybe he could. I don't know if he's on here or not.
Yeah, he's on there. I'll allow him to.
Yeah. Joel should be able to unmute himself now. There he is.
There, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, Kelsey did a great job describing our concerns about this project. But I want to say thanks to you as a commission and the help that the staff has given us. As Kelsey described, this is a very irregular shaped lot. And we want to do everything we can to, within reason, of course, to really make a good improvement. The only couple of things I would share, just a little bit about our organization and our history, and I'll be very brief. But as indicated, this building is owned by the Agribusiness Foundation. The foundation's primary purpose is to conduct education programs for agribusinesses and to provide scholarships to students to community colleges and Iowa State University who have an interest in making a career in agribusiness. We lease some of the space to the Agribusiness Association. We lease a little bit of space to Agribusiness Radio, and we do some contract work for other small agribusiness associations who can't afford their own space and can't afford their own staff. Our predecessor organizations purchased this property in 1993. So we're a longtime resident of this location. We've never done, unfortunately, a major renovation like this. And as Kelsey indicated, we've been in the planning stages for a number of years here, about 4 or 5 years. This is, in our mind, about a $3 million renovation and improvements to be made interior and exterior on the facility. We're raising those funds through a capital campaign because we don't have those funds on hand. And so we're trying to raise those funds. We've successfully raised approximately $2 million of that $3 million. None of that has come from a major gift. It's all come in small bites, if you will, from agribusiness companies. So in addition to the concerns of these variances and the challenges that we face with them, it does add additional cost to the project. And it appears that, if we aren't able to raise those monies, we'll have to have some debt against it. I know that finances aren't a concern to you. And we want to do things right and improve the space. But I would just say, if you look around where we're located and in the zone we're in, a gravel parking lot to our east for about a block and a half owned by the state, a church to our south and a church to our west, neither of which has been updated for decades, and then a less lower quality, I'll say, residential area to our north, just on the border of us. We just think this $3 million project, as it stands and as we've requested, is going to do a great amount to improve the visibility, the location, and the community by itself. So I would agree with everything that Kelsey addressed from the technical standpoint, and we just value your support to move forward with these 4 variances as requested.
Hey,
Thank
Joel,
you very much for your time.
Joel, please state your address.
Oh, I'm sorry. Joel Brinkmeyer. My address is 3410 Valley View Road in Ames, Iowa. And I'm the CEO for the Agribusiness Foundation.
Yes, thank you. Questions for Joel or Kelsey from the commission?
This is Will Page here with a question for the applicant, please.
Yes.
My question has to do with item A in the design alternatives. What are for the mechanical screening, what are the building materials you're using in the design that you're using for that screening?
We've looked at a steel post and steel, like a metal ribbed panel to go over top of that for the screening mechanism.
When you say over the top of that, you mean to rise above the top, or actually you're not going to go over the top of it, are you? Or this is to rise above the mechanical equipment, is that correct?
So this would be the screen would be the same height as the mechanical equipment, but so the way we would construct the screen is that we would have the steel post that would connect to the roof joist, and then we would span between each of those steel posts with a ribbed metal panel. And so that panel would be the same height as the mechanical units in order to hide them.
I see. Have you explored other design options that might not cost as much?
We've had our contractor look at a system which would not need to penetrate the roof, one that would sit on top. The problem with that is the weight of the anchors. So it's not so much the cost of the screen is, it's a significant amount, but it's more so the cost of having to reinforce all of the existing structure of the roof. Because of how much extra weight we're going to have on this roof. The existing, just from the snow loads, the existing roof won't be able to handle that. And so we'd have to beef up all of the roof joists, if that makes sense, hopefully.
Great, thank you. Other questions for either?
Madam Chair, this is Johnny Alsavar. I have a similar question to the last question that was posed. Have you explored any options about relocation of those mechanical units, perhaps putting them on the ground aside next to the building or somewhere else on site?
Looking at the site plan, the amount of space that we have to the east, which I think would be probably the best location for those, is limited. And right now, all the existing units for the building are on top of the roof. So, in a way, we're replacing those, and it's kind of set up so that we could, keep all of those units on the roof and away from the bottom where, we could have. I don't know, we just keeping it the same as what it's been before is kind of the direction that we've gone for this. And then we don't have to worry so much about, if there's ever any vandalism or, a car that could potentially run into these, because there is a little bit of an alleyway that runs along that east side of the building there. But that is a fair point.
Other questions for either applicant? Okay. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor of this proposal? Raise your hand. Or *9 on your phone. Okay, I'm not seeing any. Is there anyone who'd like to speak in opposition or express concerns about this proposal? I'm not seeing any. All right, time to close the public hearing. Discussion from the commission. I guess I wanted to ask the commission, what people think about the fence and their proposal instead of the required 7-foot fence, frontage buffer. Does anyone on the commission have a feeling about that? I mean, we have several things we could discuss here.
Madam Chair, this is Greg. Can Bert or whoever's controlling the screen bring up, unfortunately, my PDF copy of this doesn't open, so I can't see the 7 items. I have the site plan and elevations, but
Greg, are you asking to see the list of the 8 appeals?
Correct. Yes, thank you. Please, just the list. Hi, Madam Chair, this is Greg again.
Yeah, Greg.
I think I would just throw a few thoughts out for the commission to maybe discuss, or as my colleague Greg Jones would say, I'll unpack my thoughts. It seems like the one that's probably causing the biggest concern for the applicant might be arguably B as in boy, just because of the cost and the fact the whole neighborhood isn't such. I definitely am a fan of undergrounding overhead utilities. However, it's not always very fair when the burden is such that you have to underground other utilities in other areas to make the few in front of your building, unsightly. So I struggle with pushing that one on them in this case. That drawing that had the red lines really seemed pretty telling. So I personally could probably let that one go. The first one, A, is an apple. Yes.
Greg, I had a question. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I had a question along that very line, and to kind of unpack my thoughts, I wanted to ask a question of Bert, because you mentioned the word fairness. And as I remember earlier this year, perhaps it was later last year, I believe the American Legion has their headquarters directly to the west of this property. And we struggled with a similar issue with underground utilities for that property. And we did do waivers for that. And in terms of fairness, I'd like, Bert, if you would allow Greg for me to interrupt your motion, if that's what you were, doing, to explain what we did across the street, just in the interest of fairness, and see, and to see if we made an exception there.
Yeah. Thank you, Will. I'm trying to remember. I know that Legion you're talking about is about a block to the west and then another block or two north at the corner of Lion Street and I believe either East 7th or Pennsylvania Avenue. I honestly don't remember the specific though of Madam Chair. Jason, do you happen to remember, Eric?
Madam Chair, this is Eric Lundy, Senior City Planner. It's on the corner of Penn and Lion Street, and it was to upgrade to the black fixtures. I believe their utilities were already underground in that location, but they did not want. They got waiver of the black fixture types.
So we did give them some relief. Is that correct?
But that wasn't that was to change out the poles that were already existing on the perimeter of the site. I don't believe they would have had to bury the electrical lines. They were going to have to upgrade to the black pole type, which was also demonstrated at that point as a high percentage of their total project cost.
I see. Thank you. And thank you for.
This is Jason Van Essen, the planning staff. Not to make this longer than it needs to be. I apologize for that. But part of the discussion on that other case was that all they were doing was renovating their parking lot. And so that that was a very small total of construction cost as it related to the poles. And so it was more about balancing the magnitude of the improvements versus the requirements. So not exactly the same as the situation, but, somewhat relevant.
Thanks, Jason. Well, other discussion, because there are several things here we could discuss.
This is Greg. Was Greg Wadier done?
I just came back. I kind of flew off to the moon or something. I don't know what happened. I'm back.
Did you want to say anything else, Greg?
Yeah, I apologize. I'm not sure what else was said. I guess what I would say is I was okay not doing B. A, I think is something they should do, whether they relocate equipment because they don't want to solve the roof structure or screen it. I think it's important in that area. There's enough of a vista. It's not just from the bottom of the building looking up. I actually agree with their C. I like their materials. The E is in Edward. The building articulation, I think, could be waived. I'm okay with the waiver of the fence area or that 7-foot frontage, but I do think they should do a fence in front of the cars, and whether it's that green wall that I think was described or green fencing, that would be fine. And I think if they're going to keep the power lines, that they should do understory trees. They should do something to sort of soften that street edge for the pedestrians. Anyway, those are my thoughts, Greg.
I appreciate that. Other thoughts, Greg?
This is Greg Jones. I completely with the other Greg. And so if you're all willing, I'd make a motion.
Okay.
That would be to agree with staff on A and require them to screen the rooftop mechanical. On B, I also have heartburn, but we come up with this every time, and it seems over the top to require them to underground and change the poles, since it's such a huge cost. On G, I think they should do that one, so I agree with staff. And on H, I believe the city does have some street trees in their ordinance that are understory trees, not just overstory trees, so I think they should do that. So basically, I'm just agreeing with the applicant to waive B.
Well, and also waive right.
Yeah, staff had recommended approval of C, D, E, and F. And so you would be adding B to that.
Yes. Okay. Got it. Well, are we ready to vote, or is there more discussion on this? We have a motion. Okay, Tyler. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Jen, this is Kayla Berkson. I just wanted to point out that item C, when Kelsey was describing the kind of additional condition that the staff recommended, I would agree with Kelsey that I don't think it's necessary to require a change in material at the 2-foot datum line. I don't think that helps to reinforce their design intent of differentiating the existing versus the proposed. Otherwise, I agree with all the other discussion from both Gregs. I would just note that I don't think that condition on that specific item is necessary.
And this is Greg Jones. I agree with you on that one.
Okay, so we've got a motion and people are in agreement. So that can be a friendly agreement, right, Greg? Okay, so any more discussion? Because I didn't mean to cut off discussion. So thanks, Kayla. Any more discussion? Okay, we have a motion. Tyler, do you want to read the motion just to make sure we're clear, or at least just be which letters,
I'll probably have to defer to Bert on that one.
Sure. I believe the motion was to grant parts B, C, D, E, and F. And I would ask for clarification on whether you liked the condition for number on F, where the setback tapers from 4 feet at the north to 7 feet at the south. That was one of the conditions. I know you were already scratched condition number 1 that we had recommended, but I wasn't sure if on condition number 2, where the fence would taper from 4 feet at the north end to 7 feet at the south end, if that was the commission's desire, or if you'd prefer a 4-foot continuous setback.
This is Greg Jones. I think it can stay at 4 feet, but I'd listen to somebody else if they care.
Okay, so Bert, just to be clear again, what we're voting on.
Yeah, it would be to approve the appeals in B, C, D, E, and F. And I don't believe any of the conditions that were recommended would apply.
Okay.
And then that motion would be to deny parts A, which is the rooftop screening waiver, part G, which is waiver of the metal fence, and H, which is waiver of the required street trees.
Yes. Okay. Very good. We're clear. Time to vote. Tyler?
Johnny Alcivar?
Yes.
Emily Webb?
Yes.
Dory Browse?
Yes.
Jan Freed?
Yes.
Kayla Berkson?
Yes.
Carolyn Jennison? Carolyn?
Yes.
Thank you. Greg Wattier?
Yes.
Greg Jones?
Yes.
Abby Chungith?
Yes.
Rocky Spizzato?
Yes.
Will Page?
Yes.
And I see Francis is still on. We have his mic figured out yet. Francis, are you with us at all? So motion carries for item number 4, 1101.
Thank you. We're ready for item number 5.
Chair, I need to have one of the staff members make me a co-host so I can share my screen, please.
Done. Sorry, I missed you, Jason.
That's okay. Thank you.
Okay, I'll just read it briefly here. So item number 5, the applicant's Edwin Allen, 2120 Ingersoll Avenue, to review and approve for review and approval of a public hearing site plan alternate design documentation for the following type 2 design alternatives and denied type 1 alternatives in accordance with chapter 135 sections 135-9.2.4.b and 135-9.3.1.b to allow redevelopment of the property with a 2-story 5,212 square foot storefront type building for restaurant use in an MX2 mixed use district. Jason?
Chair, members of the commission, Jason Van Essen with the city planning staff. Go ahead and see if I can get my slides to advance. This is an aerial identifying the subject property on the southwest corner of the Ingersoll and MLK intersection. Photograph looking at the property, looking towards the east and slightly south. You can see the demolition of the existing building is underway. I thought this image would be helpful as we look at the project, and we can come back to it. But this is a kind of an aerial view or a pictometry view. You can see the site here, hopefully, with my mouse pointer, and then just noting some of the other development that's occurred at the intersection with the Viridian development and the development across the street on the other side of Ingersoll. Next is the landscape sheet. This is the proposed redevelopment concept with a building at the kind of occupying the eastern third or so of the site with a parking to the west, a single drive approach onto Ingersoll Avenue, parking, landscaping. We can come back to any of this at any time that we need to. Building elevations, 2-story buildings proposed. This would be the north elevation facing towards Ingersoll Avenue. Most of my discussion is going to revolve around the proposal to not have a front door or a main entrance facing the street. We are supporting the other 3 parts of the applicant's request. I will point out that as part of the basis of their proposal, and I'm sure part of their presentation will be a discussion of these 3 overhead doors that would be operable, allowing connection between the dining area and outdoors. This is the east elevation back towards MLK. South elevation back towards the grade. This is at the kind of the foot of a large embankment. And then the west elevation with their primary entrance facing the parking lot. I do have all the full set of engineering site plan drawings. I'm not going to go ahead and go through those, but if we need to, we can certainly come back to these. So I'll just go ahead and jump to the letter from the applicant's representative outlining their type 2 design requests. In this zoning district, a storefront building is supposed to have 90% frontage, and they're proposing 23. They're also limited on how much and how the parking in the side yard can be laid out. What they're proposing exceeds those kind of maximums as far as a layout style. Then the 3 stories, the minimum height in this district for a storefront building. They're proposing a 2-story building. And then the entrance on the front. And this is what I'm going to focus more on just to maximize time, but we certainly can discuss the other 3 if you'd like. But they are asking to not have that primary entrance on the street, on their main street facade. They note in here the overhead doors, as I mentioned, and the sense that they believe that that provides the connectivity that we're looking for. Staff reports that you received, we always include the criteria for granting type 2 relief in the packet. So if we need to come back to it, we certainly can, but it is there. We did analyze all 4, and as I mentioned, A, B, and C, we are supporting the last. So what we can't support is that entrance. In the staff report, we noted that providing an entrance that directly faces the street within a short distance of the public sidewalk is a significant contributor in creating a successful pedestrian environment. We don't believe that the overhead doors would add the level of visual connection between the public realm and activity within the building. And I think you also got to factor in the amount of time that the doors would be open would be limited by weather. They are separated from the sidewalk by landscaping. I certainly find the overhead door concept to be attractive and support the use of it. We even have accommodations for it in Chapter 135 about how to go about it, and that's covered in this part of the staff report. But in this case, it does not provide the connection. We did note too that other development in the area has successfully done kind of a double-sided feature element where they have a door facing a parking lot and then also facing Ingersoll Avenue. Saw some of those in the pictures that I've shown at the beginning of my presentation. With that, just in summary, we support A, B, and C, giving waiver of the building frontage requirement, on-site parking requirements, building height standards, but can't support the request on Part D. and then have just some very standard language. You put these two conditions in every public hearing site plan that comes before you, just making sure we cover all our bases. Didn't have any responses to the notice. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Jason at this time from the commission? Okay, time for the applicant. If the applicant's online, please state your name and address. And unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, hi, this is Clark Snyder with Simonson and Associates Architects. 1717 Ingersoll Avenue in Des Moines, representing Alan. Also on the line is Doug Saltzgaber with Engineering Resource Group. I just wanted to introduce ourselves and thank city staff and Jason on this application that started back in June. So thank you for all their hard work and dedication as we dealt with this difficult site. I wanted to, I'll keep this short and sweet. Obviously we're tearing down a blighted site and cleaning things up. That's really kind of a gateway to the Ingersoll corridor. So appreciate that. And it's been a challenging site to develop, access points off of Ingersoll, no access off of MLK. How that building's oriented on that site has been a challenge in meeting as many of the type 1 and type 2 design requirements as possible. So I appreciate all staff's help and support as we move through this site plan. So I just wanted to reiterate that the applicant is in support of items A, B, and C, but we would ask planning and zoning to reconsider not having a primary building entrance off of Ingersoll. And Jason had hit on a few of those topics related to the overhead doors as they face Ingersoll and kind of that transparency and connection between the new proposed Ingersoll streetscape improvements on the north side of the building, which we're still working through with Kirk and Michael, who's the city appointed engineer on that work. That's been a challenge as well. So we're working through that. We also worked with Kirk and Michael through this process on location of a transformer, not only for this building, but also all the new improvements, as everybody has seen, that is going up and down Ingersoll Avenue. So thank you for that. If you'll maybe zoom into the north elevation, Jason. I just wanted to point out where you see Zora, behind that is a flat steel canopy. And our approach there was to provide a connection off of Ingersoll for the pedestrians. And then that canopy wraps around to the west side of the building. If you can zoom out and over to the west elevation, please. So that canopy continues to the proposed main entrance to Zora. And one, it achieves that pedestrian connection off of Ingersoll. And two, it provides a direct connection to the rooftop stairs so that we're not circulating through the entire dining area. So one of the other challenges too with bars and restaurants is just, security and access points. We obviously need it because of the, the exit requirements, but we also want to limit that so that we can check people in, and monitor the comings and goings of the bar and restaurant. So security is always important too. So adding an entrance off the north side would be a challenge just from a flow perspective based on the existing interior layout. One thing I also wanted to point out is the topography challenge. We're obviously working with Kirk and Michael and the new Ingersoll streetscape improvements on the north side. We have a plan. I don't think that plan is definitive yet. It's a placeholder, but based off of existing topography in coordination with existing topography on the north side of the building, our building sits approximately a foot to 1.25 feet above the Ingersoll streetscape sidewalk. And as you can tell from the site improvements, we've got a substantially tall, 15-foot tall retaining wall on the south side of the building. So Doug's been wrestling with that over the past few months too, to make that grading all work out, to provide that pedestrian connection on the west side, but also not be 2 or 3 feet out of the ground as it relates to the connection to Ingersoll streetscape. So I just wanted to share that. I wanted to ask for your consideration to not require the north primary entrance for this applicant, and I'd be happy to answer any additional questions you might have.
Thank you. Questions for the applicant?
Madam Chair, this is Greg.
Greg?
Questions for Clark. Did you by chance, I'm assuming not if you hadn't shown them, do you have any kind of three-dimensional views? I did pick up the canopy, but it just reads so flat in these elevations.
Can you still hear me, Greg?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and Jason, I apologize. I thought Jillian was presenting. I did send her a couple of three-dimensional elevations or perspectives. But we are, I mean, the other thing that we haven't done here, Greg, is, you know, we're a couple of feet off the property line, so we weren't requesting air rights. We could, but
so,
you can see.
Yeah, I think that would help your cause a lot.
And we'd be open.
I'm looking at the site plan. It's more of a discussion topic maybe for the board, but I just think if you're going to make a move to do what you're trying to do, it should be a much stronger move, but a 3D view would have helped.
Do you have those readily available that you could email to me by chance?
Yes.
I could probably get them up on the screen here if we need to.
Okay, that'd be great. Other questions while we're waiting for the applicant? Other questions for the applicant?
This is Kayla. I have a question. Is the glass on these overhead doors clear or transparent?
It is clear.
Translucent, excuse me. Clear. Thank you.
It is clear, yes.
And this is Jan. I just want to make a comment. This will be a great addition to that corner.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
We think so too. And being a business owner on the Ingersoll corridor, we're excited. And I applaud the applicant for cleaning this corner up.
Yeah, absolutely. Other questions, or I mean, I know we're still waiting for some other documents, but other questions or discussion?
Jason, are you still there?
Yes, I'm just checking my email, and I'm also looking to see if maybe
your
Jillian
email's not popping up. Can you give me your email address?
Sure. It's JMVANESSEN
at dmgov.org?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. On their way over. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
I know we all want to go home.
That's all right. These things happen.
Yeah, but to Greg's point, that's what we were trying to do is you know, carry that horizontal element and that canopy to that front door.
Jan, this is Greg Jones. I'll make a comment on that.
Yes.
Just looking at the north elevation, there's a lot stronger draw to what's on the MLK side based on the canopy that hangs out that way, rather than the one we see with the sign on it. So I agree with Greg Wadier that it needs to be beefed up however you do that. So I'm looking forward to the perspective view.
Okay, I'm close, folks.
Okay. Thanks, Jason.
Yep.
I think I can.
Are you guys seeing the first one yet?
No.
No.
All right, just give me one more second, and I think I have an idea of what I need to do. So just. How about now?
Yes.
Well, and of course we got that tree right in the way. You might want to look at the other one. Sorry.
All right, let's see. Are you seeing the other picture now?
No, I still see the first one that popped up.
Right.
Okay, let me whoops, just give me a second here.
There we go.
Here we go.
Thank you very much. I think I'll reserve the rest of my comments for board discussion. Thanks.
Okay, discussion from the board?
But you have to do support and against.
I just have a question here. I'm kind of curious. So when you say rooftop, is it 2 levels or just 1 level? Is it the lower level or? Hello?
No. Yes, sorry. There's the rooftop level on the 2nd level, and then there's also a patio off the east side of the building as well that faces downtown. So there is, to meet our ADA and accessibility requirements, we do have a patio on the east side of the building facing downtown, and then 3/4 of the upper level is a rooftop patio.
Okay. All right. Good. Well, discussion?
Jan, did you ask for other
Yeah.
proponents and opponents to talk?
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor of this proposal? Now I have to get back to my.
Yes, I might like to add a couple comments.
Yes, okay.
This is Doug Saltzgaver, Engineering Resource Group, 2413 Grand Avenue, Des Moines.
Yes.
And one of our concerns about where we set the elevation of the building, the first floor, is what's going to be happening with the future streetscape along Ingersoll. As Clark said, I have been working very closely with Kirka Michael, the city's consultant on this project, who is designing the construction that you see going on currently on the north side of Ingersoll. They have a general layout for the south side, but they don't have enough detail to give us what the curb and sidewalk elevations will be. And he said he wouldn't have that until probably next year. So that causes us some concern if we set our building too low, and we really don't want and you would ask us to have require us to have a door on the north face. That door could be lower than what the sidewalk would end up being. And that primary entrance would be required to be ADA accessible. So where it's at right now and where the future sidewalk will be, we really could not work in a accessible entrance based on where the grades are now. So we couldn't currently make it work. And we don't know if in the future, when the streetscape improvements are done, if it would work at that time. I think most of you would agree common sense says you don't want to set a building too low where you're going to get water running in the front door. And that's certainly not what we want to do. So that's another obstacle we'd have with putting a primary entrance on the north. So with that, I'll answer any questions you may have regarding that.
Okay. Questions? I see one hand.
Jan, this is Abby.
Yeah.
I guess I'm a little confused as to why there seems to be an argument that a primary entrance on the north side has too many obstacles in its place, but yet the garage doors are supposedly going to be open quite a bit. So they seem to have the same obstacles, such as the difference in elevation, and they would be used, I would imagine, if they were open, for customers to go in and out of. So that would also pose the issue with the security that was brought up. So I guess I'm a little confused as to why they're not just windows if there's so many obstacles for a primary entrance to be located there.
Really, I can answer that question. I just learned that today myself, speaking with Clark. This is Doug Saltzgaver again. Even though those doors can open, I understand that there will be a glass barrier, for lack of a better term, that will prevent people from either walking into the building from the outside or egressing from the inside to go out. It's more or less to get some fresh air coming in when weather permits and to just make a better connection with the outside. But pedestrian passage would not be allowed through those overhead doors.
Okay, thank you for answering that.
Yeah, because I was wondering why they had plantings right in front of it. If you were going to go in and out, so that makes sense. I see a hand up by Carol Maher.
Yes, Carol Maher.
Your address, Carol?
Sure, 1510 Center Street, Des Moines, Iowa, 50314.
Okay.
I'm a resident in the neighborhood and I'm a civilian. But thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak. And this looks like a really great project for that corner. What kind of food are you going to have? Do you know?
This is Clark from Simonson. Thank you, Carol. I don't have the menu, but I'd be happy to.
I mean, is it American, Italian, Mexican?
It's American. It's American fare.
American.
Yep.
Okay, great. And I've seen in a couple of places it says retaining wall by others. I'm not sure what that means. Are you going to fix that retaining wall? Because it certainly doesn't look like anything I'm seeing on the screen right now. It's in pretty bad shape.
Yes, as a part of this proposal, we are removing the compromised existing retaining wall and replacing it with a brand new gravity retaining wall. Yes.
Okay, what about the wooden stairs behind it? Going from
that all goes away as well. The building will be tied to the retaining wall.
Okay, great. And this depiction doesn't show any of those electric poles that are there now, although a new one has been installed recently. Are those poles going away?
Very good question. As a part of the Ingersoll Streetscape project, Mid-American Energy is either moving them temporarily for us for construction and then burying those lines as a part of the Streetscape project in the spring of 21.
Oh, rock on. That's awesome. That's really great. Let's see, I'm looking at my list. I agree strongly as a bicyclist and pedestrian that entrance off of Ingersoll should strongly be considered. As far as safety, eyes on the street, activating a streetscape, it's really important. So I would support the staff on that denial, although I don't have a vote in this game. But, and certainly in this time of COVID, which may exist forever and ever, having another door on the side where for carry out and pickup only might be what you would have like on the parking lot side, that wouldn't go into the restaurant. That would be more of an easy in and out. So you wouldn't have all those other traffic people going through where your sit downers are, might be considered as a compromise. And you said, I think you were required to do one bike rack, but you were going to do two. If there's any way you can fit more bike parking, I think more is always better. Just as someone that's relatively new to the city and a bicyclist and the difficulty in finding places to park my bike, I think this is a really great bike route that has bike lanes, and encouraging bicyclists to come to your place and having a place to park and lock their bike is always good. So don't miss out on that, because biking is the future, baby. And you mentioned that you're going to be, that you've started demolition. Wasn't there today, but I was there yesterday, and there was a large unsecured hole on the site. And I was a little surprised at how unsecured it was. Is that sort of okay in the city, or is that something that should maybe be addressed?
Carol, thank you for bringing that to our attention and those items to our attention. I appreciate it. I'll get with the contractor to make sure it's secure and fenced and temporarily fenced. To answer your question about the bicycles, we do have a bike rack. If you're looking at the image on the screen to the right or west, where those shrubs are planted, there's a bike rack there. But then also keep in mind that on the east side of the building, We have a fence required because we're going to be serving alcohol around there that you can tie your bike to, and there's an entrance for bikers on the east side of the building.
Yeah, bicyclists don't like to walk up to a fence, just as an FYI. So.
Yeah, and if demand is there, we can certainly look into additional bike racks on the site. Thank you for your comments. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak about this proposal? Raise your hand. Okay. All right. Mr. Snyder or Doug, Mr. Salt, do either one of you want to say anything else?
No, other than I will add one more comment just to echo what Greg had said. Without the attempt of working with staff on air rights over the proposed Ingersoll streetscape improvements, we would look to providing a little bit stronger entrance, off of Ingersoll to our west entrance. If you'd please consider that exception of a primary entrance on the north side.
Okay.
Thank you for your time and consideration.
Yes, thank you. It's time to close the public hearing. And now it's time for discussion. We've heard people express their concerns. So discussion or commission, what do you think? Again, we're primarily talking about D, which is the door.
This is Greg. Once again, Madam Chair. I'm sure others have thoughts too, but I've probably already tipped my hand. This picture is a really good picture in showing that I personally think it's very difficult to find the front door. And it's not a site problem. I think the site design concept's fine. I understand the concern with connecting into Ingersoll and some unknowns. I understand all that. So in my opinion, either the front door needs to be better addressed and moved to the Ingersoll side, or if it stays on the west side, that it's a much stronger architectural and or landscape element. Right now, it's just a sidewalk. The form that's on the east side is so dominant, that screen form. I quite honestly wonder if that form should be moved to the other side of the building and shade that patio when the sun's setting instead of blocking views to the city. Sorry, that's my architect hat. But I definitely think the entry needs to be significantly done better, and I would be in support of some revisions made to the approval of the planning administrator.
Okay, so those are comments. You're not making a motion yet.
No, I think others ought to
have
an opportunity to talk.
I would like to see the photo again of where the door is.
Sure, just give me a second here.
Okay, so that would be the west side, right?
Correct.
The rendering, Jan?
Yeah, yes, the rendering. Okay. Other discussion from the commission?
Jan, this is Greg Jones. I reiterate what Greg said and would turn his thoughts into a motion.
Okay, go ahead.
I would allow them to leave the primary door on the west facade as long as a dominant entrance feature can be created to guide you there. Otherwise, it needs to move to the north facade.
Okay.
Does that work, Greg?
I would just offer you add to that to the satisfaction of the planning administrator.
Okay.
Okay. So you're basically approving staff, but then on letter D, you're making that revision.
Correct.
Okay. We have a motion. We have a motion. So we'll take a vote. Tyler?
Dory Briles,
Yes.
Dan Freed,
Yes.
Kayla Berkson,
Yes.
Carolyn Jennison,
Yes.
Greg Wattier,
Yes.
Greg Jones,
Yes.
Abby Chungith,
Yes.
Rocky Spizzato,
Yes.
Will Page,
Yes.
Johnny Alcivar,
Yes.
and Emily Webb.
Yes.
All right. And since I've done it every other time, Francis Bogus, are you with us yet? Still not hearing nothing, so we'll just abstain him again for motion carries 11-01.
Yeah, you're being very considerate, Tyler. Thank you very much. Director's report, and I just want the commission to know that I did talk to Mike about the sidewalk committee, and so he's going to make some comments on that. But thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, Michael Ludwig, Planning Administrator. As I stated last meeting, we need to be coordinating with the, I guess, Transportation or Traffic Safety Committee, as the sidewalk requirement really came out of Move DSM, which was that plan was driven by the Traffic and Transportation Division. And so I have sent an email to the city engineer and city traffic engineer asking for representatives from the Transportation Safety Committee and their staff to meet with our staff and representatives on the Planning Commission to discuss the sidewalk. In the interim, the direction that we've gotten from engineering staff and the city traffic engineer is that they received direction from council, and that is that we're to be trying to get sidewalks in. As I see this, the discussion really will be about, do we have any options for alternatives to installing them now, such as, can we figure out a way to do it consistently an escrow or a performance guarantee, et cetera. So I've not heard back on their membership or representatives. And so that's why we have not set up the meeting yet, but I certainly am working to try and get that scheduled. At this point, after talking with Jan and who she had heard from about interest on the committee from Planning Commission, I think we probably only need about 2 or 3 planning commissioners because of the other committee that will be represented. And so at this point, Will, you had expressed interest. Jan said she would, and then I think possibly there was a suggestion that maybe Greg Jones might be interested or could serve on that. I don't know if Greg, I hadn't heard directly from you, so I'll leave it up to the commission on who they want to have representatives on there, but I would say 2 or 3 commissioners, and then we just need to be working with our other city staff and other commissions as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Jan, this is Greg Jones.
Yes.
Will and I talked today, and I'm willing to serve if.
Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, if they want 3, I'll serve. If they want 2, I would recommend Will and Greg Jones.
Yeah,
So,
I think 3 is fine, but I'll leave it up to the commission. You can decide if you want 2 or 3 on there. So.
Okay.
And I don't have a date for a meeting yet, but I am working on trying to get that set up. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else, Mike, from a director's perspective?
No, the only thing I wanted to just point out is we are in the process of doing interviews for the Economic Development Administrator, and we start interviews next week for Planning Administrator. So that would be my replacement as the Planning Administrator going forward. And so we'll keep you posted on that as we're going through our selection process. And anyway, the Development Services Department will, as I think I told you at a previous meeting, Aaron Olson Douglas will be the director, or is the director of our department. I'm the deputy director, and therefore we're hiring replacements for OED administrator and planning administrator in the department. the department will consist of, and this information is available on our website, but the Development Services Department will consist of Economic Development staff, the Permit and Development Center staff, so the building permits and building inspections staff, and then the planning staff, which includes former divisions of planning, urban design, and neighborhood planning. And then the Neighborhood Services Department will kind of include the zoning inspectors, neighborhood inspection staff, and our federal grants staff going forward. So that's the new structure of the two departments, merging community development and OED essentially into two different departments. And we think that it'll definitely help with streamlining a lot of our reviews and our boards and commissions, et cetera. So if you have questions about it, feel free to email me or give me a call. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Anything else from anyone? Well, thank you very much. It was a good meeting, and everybody stay healthy and hopeful.
Thanks, Jan.